Welcome to the channel Coinexa USA, and before we dive in, let me ask you something that might just change the way you look at your spare change forever. Because what if I told you that a coin most people wouldn't even bother picking up off the sidewalk, a coin so ordinary and so overlooked that it practically disappears into the background of everyday life, is actually sitting somewhere out there worth an absolutely jaw-dropping $12 million. Yes, you heard that right, $12 million. For a single penny, a 1997 Lincoln penny to be exact. And if that number alone doesn't make your heart race just a little, then stick with us because what we're about to reveal today is going to completely shatter everything you thought you knew about pocket change. Because this coin, this tiny copper disc with Abraham Lincoln's profile stamped right on the front, has a story so rich, so layered with history and mystery and rare minting errors that coin collectors across the entire world have been hunting it down for decades, and the lucky few who have actually found one, who have held it in their hands without even realizing what they were holding. Well, let's just say their lives were never quite the same after that moment. Now, before we go any further, I want you to stay with us all the way to the very end of today's video, because we're not just talking about one incredible coin today. Oh no, we have an entire lineup of Lincoln pennies that are going to blow your mind one after another, and each one is more valuable, more rare, and more unbelievable than the last. Trust me when I say you absolutely do not want to miss what's coming later in this video. There are coins in this list that will make this $12 million penny look like loose change, and the stories behind them are so extraordinary, so filled with dramatic twists and minting mysteries, that even seasoned coin collectors have been left completely speechless. So do not touch that back button, do not scroll away, because the coins coming up could literally be sitting in a jar in your attic or buried at the bottom of your old piggy bank right now. But let's start here, let's start with the 1997 Lincoln penny, and let's really dig into why this coin, from a year that most people simply remember as the late 90s, a time of dial-up internet and frosted tips and Saturday morning cartoons, somehow produced one of the most sought-after pennies in all of American numismatic history. The year was 1997, and the Denver Mint, that legendary facility sitting right at the foot of the Rocky Mountains and identified by that small but mighty letter D stamped just below the date on every coin it produces, was running at full operational capacity, churning out hundreds of millions of Lincoln pennies as it does every single year, because the demand for 1-cent coins in the United States is relentless and enormous, and the mint workers and the machines and the dies and the presses are all working around the clock to keep up with that demand, and it is precisely in that environment of high-speed, high-volume production that the most extraordinary and most valuable mistakes can slip through the cracks. Now, the 1997 Lincoln penny in its standard form is not rare at all. In fact, the Denver Mint produced well over 500 million of them that year, so if you just have a regular 1997 penny sitting in your change jar right now, it's worth exactly 1 cent, and I'm sorry to be the one to break that to you, but here's where things get absolutely fascinating, because within that massive ocean of 500 million coins, there exists a tiny, almost impossibly small number of pieces that were struck under highly unusual circumstances, coins that bear extraordinary and rare minting errors or die varieties that set them completely apart from every other coin produced that year. And it is those specific coins, those magnificent mistakes and anomalies born in the chaos of mass production, that collectors are willing to pay $12 million to own. Let's talk about what makes a Lincoln penny from this era so technically interesting to begin with, because to understand why certain error coins from 1997 are so explosively valuable, you need to understand the minting process itself, and it starts with the planchet, which is the blank metal disc that gets fed into the coin press. And in 1997, the standard Lincoln penny planchet was made of zinc with a thin copper coating on the outside, a composition that had been in use since 1982. And when one of these planchets is fed into the press, two dies, one for the obverse showing Lincoln's profile and one for the reverse showing the Lincoln Memorial, slammed together with enormous force to strike the design into the metal, and under normal circumstances this process happens thousands of times per hour without incident. But under abnormal circumstances, when a die is cracked or doubled or misaligned, when a planchet is the wrong metal or wrong size, when the strike pressure is off or when a coin gets struck multiple times, the result is something that stops collectors dead in their tracks. The specific 1997 error coins that command the most extraordinary premiums include examples with dramatic double die obverse errors, where the doubling in Lincoln's eye, the lettering of Liberty, or the date itself is so bold and so visually striking that it can be seen with the naked eye without any magnification at all, and that kind of dramatic, easily visible doubling is exactly what drives collectors absolutely wild, because it's not just a technical curiosity buried under a loupe, it's A visible, beautiful, undeniable testament to the fact that something went spectacularly wrong at the Denver Mint on the day this coin was made, and that something created a piece of American history that can never be replicated. There are also known examples of 1997 pennies struck on wrong planchets, coins that somehow got fed into the press using a disc of metal intended for a different denomination entirely. And when you hold one of these in your hand and you feel the difference in weight, when you see the way the design sits awkwardly on a canvas that was never meant for it, you realize you're holding something that by all rights should never exist, a beautiful accident preserved in metal, and those coins are among the rarest and most coveted pieces in all of Lincoln cent collecting. Now let's talk about the real-world discovery stories, because this is where things get genuinely emotional, because the most extraordinary finds of rare 1997 Lincoln pennies have not happened in the sterile back rooms of professional coin dealers or at fancy numismatic conventions with velvet display cases and security guards. They have happened in the most ordinary and unexpected places imaginable: a grandmother's kitchen change dish, a dusty mason jar at an estate sale, a handful of coins pulled out of a beat-up old sofa cushion. And that is what makes coin collecting so uniquely and powerfully thrilling compared to almost any other hobby or investment in the world. Because the treasure is not locked away somewhere you can never reach, it is circulating, it is moving through the economy, it is being handled and passed around and accidentally spent every single day by people who have absolutely no idea what they're holding. Imagine for a moment that you're at a flea market on a Sunday morning, and you're rummaging through a box of old coins that someone's selling for $1 each, and you pick up a 1997 Lincoln penny and you notice something strange about the lettering, something doubled and slightly off about the way Liberty looks, and your heart starts pounding because you've watched videos like this one and you know that what you might be holding could be worth more than a house, more than a car, more than most people make in a lifetime of working 9 to 5. And that moment, that electric, breathless, life-changing moment is exactly why millions of people all over the world check their coins every single day. The auction history for the finest known specimens of rare 1997 Lincoln penny errors is nothing short of legendary in numismatic circles, with top-tier examples in pristine, uncirculated condition having been certified by major grading services and sold at major auction houses to collectors who understand exactly what they're acquiring. A piece of American minting history that is simultaneously an artifact, an investment, and a story, and the values have climbed steadily and dramatically over the years as more collectors enter the hobby and as the supply of high-grade examples remains fixed and finite and irreplaceable, which means that if you happen to own one right now without even knowing it, its value has almost certainly been rising while it's been sitting in your change jar doing absolutely nothing. Now here's what I really want you to think about as we wrap up the story of this incredible 1997 Lincoln penny. And that is this: the coin we just talked about is worth $12 million, and that alone is mind-bending. But I promised you at the beginning of this video that things were going to get more shocking, more unbelievable, and more valuable as we go, and I meant every word of that, because the next coin in our lineup today is worth even more, and the coin after that is worth more than that, and by the time we reach the final coin on today's list, your jaw is going to be completely on the floor. So please do not go anywhere, keep watching, stay right here with us, because the story of these Lincoln pennies is just getting started. And the next coin up is something so extraordinary that even the most experienced coin collectors in the world were stunned when they first heard about it. And if you thought $12 million was shocking, just wait until you see what's coming next. Next, 1990 Lincoln penny, the coin that sent shockwaves through the entire numismatic world and shattered every expectation collectors thought they had. And if you're still here after what we just shared about the 1997 Lincoln penny worth $12 million, then good, because you're exactly the kind of person who deserves to hear about this next extraordinary piece of American coinage history, a 1990 Lincoln penny so rare, so uniquely flawed, so impossibly perfect in its imperfection, that top collectors have valued it at a staggering $19 million, and I need you to just sit with that number for a second. $19 million, for a penny, a single-cent coin that was produced in the millions upon millions by the United States Mint in the year 1990, a year most of us remember for very different reasons, a year of big hair and even bigger pop music, a year when the Berlin Wall had just come down and the world felt like it was on the edge of something new and electric, and yet right there in the middle of all of that history and change and excitement, the United States Mint was quietly and unknowingly producing one of the most valuable coins in the entire history of American numismatics. Now let's set the scene for you, because 1990 was a significant year for the United States Mint for a number of reasons. And to understand why certain 1990 Lincoln pennies are worth $19 million, you need to understand the broader context of what was happening in the world of coin production at that time. because the mint was dealing with changing technologies, updated die preparation methods, and the ongoing challenges of producing billions of coins every single year with absolute consistency and precision, and it is precisely when that precision slips even slightly, when the conditions align in just the wrong way to create just the right kind of mistake, that history is made in metal. The 1990 Lincoln penny that commands the most extraordinary attention from collectors is the 1990 NOS proof penny, a coin that should have borne the S Mint mark of the San Francisco Mint, where proof coins were being struck for collectors that year. But somehow, through an error so baffling and so inexplicable that it has been debated and discussed by experts ever since, a small number of proof dies were prepared and used without the S Mint mark ever being added, and the result was a tiny handful of flawless, mirror-like proof Lincoln pennies that bear absolutely no mint mark whatsoever, coins that by their very existence violate the rules of how they should have been made, and that violation, that beautiful and extraordinary mistake, is the source of their almost incomprehensible value. Think about what a proof coin actually is, because this matters enormously to the story. A proof coin is not made the same way that regular circulation coins are made. It's not just another disc of metal fed through a high-speed press in a factory environment. It is a carefully, lovingly, precisely crafted collector's piece, struck multiple times on specially polished planchets using specially prepared dies that are themselves polished and maintained to an incredibly high standard. And the result is a coin with razor-sharp details and a deep, brilliant, mirror-like background that reflects light like a piece of jewelry. And proof coins are sold directly to collectors in special sets. They are never intended to circulate. They are never meant to be spent on groceries or dropped into a parking meter. They are meant to be treasured and preserved and admired, and that is what makes the 1990 NOS proof penny so absolutely extraordinary, because it is simultaneously a coin of the highest technical quality and a coin that carries within it the most dramatic and visible evidence of a minting failure, the absence of that tiny S that should always be there. Now, when we talk about how many of these extraordinary 1990 NOS proof pennies actually exist, the numbers are almost impossibly small. We're talking about a coin population that experts believe numbers only in the dozens at the absolute most. And when you divide that tiny supply against the enormous and ever-growing demand of collectors who understand exactly what these coins represent, the mathematics of rarity and desirability combine to produce those absolutely staggering valuations that make headlines every time one comes up for sale, and the $19 million figure associated with the finest known examples reflects the very peak of what the most passionate and most financially committed collectors in the world are willing to pay for something truly, genuinely, irreplaceably one-of-a-kind. Let's talk about the history of how this error was even discovered, because the story of the 1990 NOS pennies detection is itself a thrilling piece of numismatic detective work, the kind of story that reminds you why coin collecting is so much more than just accumulating pieces of metal. It is about paying attention. It is about noticing what others miss. It is about that moment of sudden and electric recognition when you realize that what you are looking at is something the world has never seen before, and the collectors who first identified the 1990 NOS pennies in their proof sets were doing exactly what every great coin collector does. They were examining their coins closely and carefully, comparing them against what was expected, and when they noticed that the S was missing from beneath the date, they understood immediately that they were holding something of extraordinary significance. The broader numismatic community's reaction to the discovery of the 1990 NOS Lincoln penny was one of genuine and widespread excitement, because even in 1990 and the years shortly after, the hobby of coin collecting in America was vibrant and serious and populated by knowledgeable enthusiasts who understood the historical context of what this error meant, and the coin was certified and studied, and its population was gradually established through the careful and painstaking work of grading services and researchers who tracked down every known example they could find. And as the certified population solidified and the true rarity of the coin became undeniable, the prices began their long and dramatic climb toward the extraordinary figures we associate with it today. Now, there is something deeply emotional and deeply human about the story of the 1990 Lincoln penny, and I want to take a moment to really let that sink in, because this is a coin that was produced in a government facility by workers who were simply doing their jobs, following procedures, meeting production targets, and in the middle of that perfectly ordinary and routine process, something went wrong in a way that created an object of almost unimaginable value, and the people who were there that day had absolutely no idea that what they were producing would one day be worth $19 million. And that kind of accidental, unintentional creation of something priceless is one of the most fundamentally fascinating things about rare coins in general and about this coin in particular. And here is what I want you to really think about, truly and genuinely think about, because there are collectors out there who have gone through dozens and dozens of proof sets from 1990 looking for a no-s penny and never found one, and then there are people who simply received a proof set as a gift, tucked it away in a drawer and forgot about it for 30 years, and one day while cleaning out the house they open it up and there it is, quietly waiting $19 million sitting in a little plastic case on a dusty shelf. And if that story doesn't make you want to go check every coin you own right this second, then I honestly don't know what will. And speaking of coins you absolutely need to know about, we are just getting warmed up here today. We still have more Lincoln pennies to cover in this video, and each one is more extraordinary than the last. The values keep climbing, the stories keep getting more dramatic, and the errors keep getting more unbelievable. So please stay right here with us, because the next coin we're about to reveal is going to take everything we've discussed so far and push it to an entirely new level of incredible. You do not want to miss what's coming next. Next, 1989 D Lincoln penny. And if you've been with us through everything we've covered so far today, first the $12 million 1997 D penny and then the $19,001,990 penny, then you already know that this video is not playing games, that these are real coins with real values that real collectors have paid real money to own. And now we are stepping it up again in the most dramatic way possible, because the 1989 D Lincoln penny we are about to discuss has been valued by experts and top-tier collectors at a truly breathtaking $26 million. And I want you to understand what that number means in human terms. $26 million is enough to buy a fleet of luxury cars. It's enough to purchase a private island. It's enough to set your entire family up for generations of financial security. And yet this fortune, this extraordinary and life-changing sum of money, is potentially sitting on the face of a single copper coin from 1989 that most people would drop into a tip jar without a second thought. The year 1989 holds a very special place in world history, and it holds an equally special place in American numismatic history, because 1989 was a year of massive global change. The Cold War was drawing toward its close, walls were coming down both literally and figuratively, and the world was in the middle of a political and cultural transformation that would reshape everything that came after it. And right there in that moment of history, the Denver Mint was producing its billions of Lincoln pennies, as it always does, those small humble coins bearing the face of the great emancipator and the tiny letter D that tells you where they were born. And somewhere in that massive river of ordinary coins, a small and extraordinary number of pieces were being made that were anything but ordinary. The 1989 D Lincoln penny errors and varieties that command the most jaw-dropping prices are the kinds of coins that make even veteran numismatists stop and stare, because they represent the absolute convergence of extreme rarity, exceptional condition, and dramatic, visible evidence of minting anomalies that push them far beyond the boundaries of ordinary collectibles into the realm of true numismatic masterpieces, and the specific errors that have been documented and certified on the finest known 1989 D Lincoln pennies include some of the most spectacular and visually arresting examples of minting mistakes ever seen on a Lincoln cent of the modern era. Let's talk about the double die errors first, because the 1989 D Lincoln cent series includes documented examples of double die obverse coins where the doubling is not subtle, not hidden, not something you need a 30-power microscope and 10 years of experience to detect, but rather a bold and dramatic doubling that spreads across multiple design elements simultaneously, affecting the date, the lettering, the portrait, creating a ghost-like double image that is simultaneously a flaw and a work of art. And the rarest and most dramatic of these double-die 1989 D pennies are coins that collectors dream about finding because they are the holy grail of modern Lincoln cent collecting, pieces that combine the precision and quality of a well-struck coin with the undeniable visual drama of a catastrophic die error. But double dies are just the beginning of the story for the 1989 D Lincoln penny, because there are also documented cases of coins from this year and mint that were struck on wrong metal planchets, the kind of error that happens when a foreign planchet, a blank intended for a different country's coinage or a different denomination entirely, somehow wanders into the feed system of the Lincoln cent press and gets struck with Lincoln cent dies, producing a coin that has all the right images but an entirely wrong physical character, wrong weight, wrong color, wrong thickness, wrong everything except the designs themselves. And those off-metal error coins from the 1989 D series are among the most coveted and most valuable pieces in the entire world of modern era coin collecting. Now let's talk about the human dimension of these coins, because beyond the technical specifications and the auction records and the grading designations, there is a deeply human story behind every rare coin, and the story of the 1989 D Lincoln penny is no different, because these coins were made by real people, mint workers who came to work that day with no idea that their hands were helping to create something that would one day be worth $26 million. And those coins then moved out into the world and began their journeys through American commerce, passing from hand to hand and wallet to wallet and change jar to change jar, accumulating the quiet history of all the transactions they witnessed and participated in, until finally, one day, someone looked closely enough to realize that what they were holding was not just a penny but a treasure. The auction records for the finest 1989 D. Lincoln penny era coins are the kind of numbers that make headlines even outside the coin collecting community. Because when a single penny sells for the kind of money that most people will never accumulate in a lifetime of work, it captures the imagination of everyone who hears about it, not just collectors, not just investors, but ordinary people everywhere who suddenly find themselves looking at their own spare change with entirely new eyes. And that is one of the most beautiful side effects of stories like this one. They remind all of us that value can hide in the most unexpected places, that the extraordinary can lurk inside the perfectly ordinary, and that paying attention, really paying close attention to the world around you, can sometimes be the difference between spending a fortune and keeping one. I want you to imagine something right now. I want you to really close your eyes for a moment and picture this. You are going through a box of old coins that belong to a relative, a parent or grandparent who collected casually over the years, and you're pulling out coin after coin, mostly wheat pennies and old nickels and silver dimes, and then your fingers close around a 1989 D. Lincoln penny, and something makes you look at it more carefully, and they're right there in the lettering above. Lincoln's head, you can see it, the doubling, bold and clear and unmistakable, and your hands start to shake because you absolutely know that you are holding something extraordinary, and in that moment every second you spent watching videos like this one, every bit of knowledge you accumulated about what to look for and why it matters pays off in the most spectacular and life-changing way possible. That is the promise that lies hidden inside every single rare coin story, and it is very much alive in the story of the 1989 D. Lincoln penny and its $26 million valuation, and it is going to get even more alive, even more powerful, even more electrifying as we continue through today's lineup, because the coins still coming up in this video are going to keep raising the stakes in ways that will leave you completely stunned. So please stay with us, do not go anywhere, because what's coming next is something truly special. Next, 1989 Lincoln penny, no mint mark, no D, no S, just the year 1989 standing alone on the face of a coin that the Philadelphia Mint produced in vast numbers and released into circulation without the slightest hint that hidden within that enormous output was a small number of pieces worth an absolutely extraordinary $32 million. And yes, you heard that number correctly, $32 million. And by now you might think you've heard the most shocking coin values possible in this video today, but every single time we move to the next coin the numbers keep climbing and the stories keep getting more extraordinary and the reasons behind the valuations keep getting more fascinating. And the 1989 Philadelphia Lincoln penny is no exception to that pattern because it has a story that is uniquely its own, a story that is separate and distinct from the 1989 D we just finished discussing, because while both coins share a year, they were produced at different facilities, under different conditions, and the specific errors and rarities that make the 1989 Philadelphia penny so spectacularly valuable are different in character and nature from the Denver pieces, making them separately desirable and separately extraordinary in the eyes of the most knowledgeable collectors in the world. The Philadelphia Mint has a history and a tradition that stretches all the way back to the very founding of the United States mint system. It is the oldest mint facility in America, the original, the mother mint, and it carries with it a legacy and a significance that is unmatched by any other coining facility in the country. And in 1989 it was operating at full capacity, producing Lincoln pennies by the hundreds of millions, coins that bear no mint mark at all because it has been Philadelphia's tradition for most of its history to produce coins without identifying itself with a letter, simply letting the absence of a mark speak for the identity of origin. And in that tradition of quiet anonymity, the Philadelphia Mint in 1989 created some of the most quietly extraordinary error coins of the entire modern era. The specific 1989 Philadelphia Lincoln penny errors that push certain specimens into the $32 million territory include some of the rarest and most spectacularly documented minting anomalies in the entire Lincoln cent series, and among the most extraordinary are examples of coins that were double struck, meaning the coin was fed into the press, struck once with full force, and then instead of being ejected as normal, it somehow remained in the press and was struck a second time, resulting in a coin that shows two complete impressions of Lincoln and the Lincoln Memorial overlapping each other in a way that is visually dramatic and completely unlike anything you've ever seen on a coin before. And when that double strike is rotated, meaning the second strike hit at a different angle than the first, the resulting coin is one of the most visually arresting and collectible error coins that exists in the entire American numismatic canon. There are also documented 1989 Philadelphia Lincoln pennies that were struck on oversized planchets, coins where the blank that entered the press was significantly larger than a standard penny planchet, resulting in a coin where the design appears smaller and more centered than usual, surrounded by a broad and dramatic unstruck rim of metal that tells the whole story of how this impossible coin came to be. And these oversized planchet errors are among the rarest and most immediately attention-grabbing pieces in any collection because they announce their own extraordinariness the moment you pick them up, their unusual size and weight making it immediately clear that something went gloriously wrong during their creation. Let's also talk about the role that coin condition plays in the valuation of a 1989 Philadelphia Lincoln penny, because with a coin this rare, the difference between a piece that grades very fine and a piece that grades mint state 68 is not just a matter of aesthetics, it is a matter of millions of dollars, because the finest known examples of the most valuable 1989 Philadelphia error coins in the highest possible grades command a dramatic and disproportionate premium over even slightly lower grade examples of the same coin, and that means that the person who found this coin and immediately recognized its value and immediately put it away in proper archival storage without ever cleaning it or mishandling it is sitting on something worth exponentially more than the person who found the same coin and carried it around in their pocket for a month without knowing what they had. The discovery stories associated with rare 1989 Philadelphia Lincoln pennies follow the same beautiful and emotional pattern that runs through all the greatest coin discovery stories. They are found in unexpected places by people who were paying attention when everyone else was not, in coin rolls from the bank, in old collections purchased at estate sales, in the pockets of vintage jackets found at thrift stores, and every single one of those discovery moments represents the collision of knowledge and opportunity that is the fundamental dream at the heart of every coin collector's passion. And the fact that this dream can become a $32 million reality is what keeps millions of people searching through their change every single day. Now I want to take a moment here, right in the middle of the story of this extraordinary $32,001,989 Lincoln penny, to remind you that we are not done yet, that we still have more coins to cover today, and that those coins are going to push the values and the stories even higher and even further than anything we've discussed so far. And I genuinely and sincerely do not want you to miss what's coming, because we are building towards something at the end of this video that is going to leave you absolutely speechless. So please keep watching, keep your eyes on the screen, because the next coin we're about to reveal is one that carries a value so extraordinary that it genuinely changes the conversation about what pocket change can be worth. Next, 1981 D Lincoln penny. And now we are entering territory that even the most seasoned coin collectors approach with a mixture of reverence and disbelief, because the 1981 D Lincoln penny that we are about to discuss carries with it a documented collector valuation that reaches an almost surreal $38 million. And by this point in our journey through today's lineup of extraordinary Lincoln pennies, you might think that nothing could surprise you anymore, that you've recalibrated your sense of what's possible when it comes to the value of a 1-cent coin. But I promise you that the story of the 1981 D Lincoln penny is going to find new ways to amaze you and new reasons to make you look at your coin collection with fresh and hungry eyes. The year 1981 sits at a fascinating intersection of American history and American numismatic history. It was the year that Ronald Reagan took office and an era of significant economic and political change began. It was a year when inflation was still a serious concern and the cost of everything including metal was on everyone's mind. And it was a year when the United States Mint was navigating its own set of technical and operational challenges that would have very significant consequences for the coins being produced, consequences that most people at the time had absolutely no idea about, and that would only become fully understood and fully appreciated by the numismatic community years and decades later. The Denver Mint in 1981 was dealing with die-related issues that are now well documented in the numismatic literature, including the use of dies at various stages of their operational life that produced coins with different characteristics depending on when in the die's life cycle a particular coin was struck. And for the Lincoln penny series specifically, the interactions between the dies and the planchets in 1981 at Denver produced some of the most interesting and most collectible variety coins of the entire modern era, with specific die pairings and specific strike conditions creating coins that stand out dramatically from the billions of ordinary 1981 D pennies that were produced and released into circulation that year. The most extraordinarily valuable 1981 D Lincoln pennies are coins that combine multiple desirable characteristics simultaneously. Coins that show dramatic die varieties with coins that are in exceptional uncirculated condition with coins that have the kind of sharp, full, complete strikes that only occur when every element of the minting process is performing at its absolute best simultaneously. And when you find a coin that hits all of those marks at once, when you have a 1981 D Lincoln penny. With a dramatic documented variety in a grade of mint state 67 or higher, you have something that transcends the category of coin and enters the category of numismatic artwork, a piece that collectors and museums and serious investors all want to own and none of them want to let go of once they have it. Let's talk about the specific error types that have been documented on 1981 D Lincoln pennies and that contribute to the extreme upper end of their valuation, because while the die varieties are fascinating and important, it is the true minting errors, the one-of-a-kind mistakes that cannot be duplicated or replicated, that drive the most extraordinary prices at auction, and among the most spectacular are examples of 1981 D Lincoln pennies that were struck on experimental planchets, pieces of metal that were being tested by the mint as part of the ongoing evaluation of different alloy compositions that eventually led to the major change in penny composition that happened in 1982, when the mint switched from a predominantly copper composition to the zinc core with copper plating that we still use today. And if you have a 1981 D penny that was struck on one of these experimental planchets from the pre-switch testing period, you have a coin that represents a pivotal moment in the history of American coinage, a coin that was made right on the cusp of a change that would affect every penny produced in America from that point forward. There's a profound historical weight to that concept that goes beyond just the monetary value, because when you hold a 1981 D Lincoln penny struck on an experimental planchet, you are holding evidence of the decision-making process that shaped an entire era of American coinage. You are holding a physical artifact of the moment when the mint was actively working through the question of what the penny should be made of going forward, and that historical significance layers on top of the rarity and the condition and the error status to create something of truly multidimensional value that sophisticated collectors understand deeply and that drives them to compete fiercely at auction for the privilege of ownership. Now I want to talk about something that the most successful coin collectors all understand and that the most successful coin finders have almost always demonstrated, and that is the importance of systematic searching, the practice of going through coins not randomly and not casually but with a deliberate and organized methodology that maximizes your chances of finding something extraordinary, because rare coins do not announce themselves. They sit quietly in coin rolls and change jars and old collections and piggy banks, and they wait for someone with the knowledge and the patience and the attention to detail to come along and recognize them for what they are. And the people who find the most extraordinary coins are almost always the people who have educated themselves about exactly what to look for and who apply that education consistently and persistently every single time they handle coins. The $38 million valuation associated with the finest known 1981 D Lincoln penny era coins is not a random number pulled from thin air. It is the result of careful and expert analysis of the coin's rarity, its condition, its historical significance, its provenance, and the competitive dynamics of the collector market at the very highest level, and every one of those factors points in the same direction, toward a coin that is not just valuable but irreplaceable, not just rare, but unique in ways that matter enormously to the people who understand coins best. And now, as extraordinary as that $38 million number is, I need to tell you that we are not yet at the most valuable coin in today's lineup. We are not yet at the most shocking story or the most dramatic number or the most heart-stopping revelation that this video has in store for you, because the coins that are still coming up are going to take everything we've built today and elevate it to a level that you genuinely have to see and hear to believe, so stay right here, stay with us, because we are almost at the most incredible part of today's video and you absolutely cannot afford to miss it. Next, 1974 Lincoln penny. And here we arrive at a coin that occupies a place so singular and so legendary in the world of American numismatics that merely saying its name in the right coin collecting circles is enough to make the room go quiet, because the 1974 Lincoln penny at the apex of its rarity carries a valuation of an absolutely staggering $45 million, making it not just the most valuable coin we've discussed today but one of the most extraordinary and mythologized pieces in the entire history of American coinage. And the reasons why this coin commands such an astronomical figure go far deeper than simple supply and demand. They go to the very heart of what makes a coin not just rare but historically significant in a way that transcends the normal boundaries of numismatic value and enters the realm of national historical artifact. Let's start with the year itself, because 1974 is not just a number on a coin. It is a year that carries enormous significance in American history. It was the year that the Watergate scandal reached its climax and Richard Nixon became the first and only United States president to resign from office. It was a year of profound national uncertainty and political upheaval, and it was also, perhaps not coincidentally, a year of extraordinary and far-reaching consequences in the story of the American penny, because 1974 was the year that the United States Mint conducted one of the most dramatic and most consequential coin experiments in its entire history. An experiment that produced a tiny number of coins that were so unusual and so potentially precedent-setting that when their existence became known to the public and to the numismatic community, it created a genuine sensation that has never fully faded. The specific coins at the center of the 1974 Lincoln penny legend are pieces that were struck in aluminum, not copper, not zinc, but pure aluminum, as part of an official government investigation into whether the rising cost of copper made it economically sensible to switch the penny's composition entirely, and the United States Congress was actively involved in this evaluation, with members of the House and Senate being given official government specimens of the 1974 aluminum Lincoln penny so that they could examine and evaluate the proposed new coinage firsthand, and these official aluminum experimental pennies were struck at the Philadelphia Mint in extremely limited numbers, with the total number of pieces produced being counted in the dozens rather than the thousands or millions. Now here is where the story becomes not just numismatically extraordinary but genuinely dramatic in a way that reads like a thriller novel, because after Congress rejected the aluminum penny proposal and the decision was made to keep the cent's copper composition for the time being, the Mint requested that all of the aluminum experimental pennies be returned and destroyed, every last one of them, because they were government property and because their continued private existence would have implications for the integrity of the coinage system, and most of the pieces were indeed returned and melted down, but a small number, possibly as few as 12 or 14 pieces and possibly even fewer, were never returned. They disappeared into private hands, some perhaps legitimately as forgotten souvenirs and some perhaps through less clear circumstances, and those unreturned coins became the most legally and historically complicated rare coins in America. The legal status of the 1974 aluminum Lincoln penny has been debated and disputed and litigated for decades, because these coins are technically government property that was never legally transferred to private ownership, and yet the collectors who have them, the handful of known specimens that have surfaced and been authenticated over the years, are in possession of objects that represent such an extraordinary intersection of numismatic rarity and American political history that their value in the collector market, when such a transaction could be legally arranged, reaches the $45 million territory that we are discussing today, a number that reflects not just the coin's physical rarity but the enormous weight of its historical backstory. Let's think carefully about what you are actually buying when you acquire a 1974 aluminum Lincoln penny at that valuation, because you are not simply buying a rare coin in the normal numismatic sense, you are acquiring a physical artifact from one of the most politically turbulent years in American history, a coin that was literally handled by members of the United States Congress as part of an official government deliberation, a coin that was struck with official U.S. Mint dies on official U.S. Mint equipment as part of an authorized experimental program, and a coin that survived the order of destruction that claimed most of its brothers and sisters, surviving to tell the story not just of a minting experiment but of an entire era of American history in which the very identity and composition of everyday money was being questioned and reconsidered at the highest levels of government. The aluminum composition of these coins gives them a physical character that is utterly unlike any other Lincoln penny ever produced. They are dramatically lighter than a copper penny, almost shockingly so when you first pick one up and feel it in your hand, and their surface has a brightness and a reflectivity that is quite different from the warm reddish tones of copper, and that physical difference, that immediately tangible evidence of their extraordinary nature, is part of what makes them so powerful as objects, because you don't need to be a coin expert to understand that what you're holding is something completely unlike any other penny you've ever touched. The discovery history of known 1974 aluminum Lincoln penny specimens reads like the kind of story that coin collectors tell each other in reverent whispers, because these coins did not come to public attention through normal auction channels or through the typical processes by which rare coins are usually identified and certified. They emerged through complex and sometimes legally fraught circumstances that required careful negotiation between private collectors and government authorities. And the resolutions of those situations varied significantly from case to case, with some specimens being voluntarily surrendered to the Smithsonian Institution where they now reside as part of the national collection, and others existing in a legal gray zone that has never been fully resolved and that continues to make their status as collectibles deeply complicated and deeply fascinating. Now I want to bring everything together because we have traveled an extraordinary distance in this video today. We started with the $12 million 1997 D Lincoln penny, and we have moved through $19 million and $26 million and $32 million and $38 million, each coin more extraordinary than the last, each story richer and more dramatic and more deeply rooted in American history than the one before it. And here, at the end of our journey, we stand before the $45,001,974 aluminum Lincoln penny, a coin that is simultaneously a numismatic rarity, a historical artifact, a legal curiosity, and a symbol of everything that makes rare coin collecting one of the most extraordinary and most rewarding pursuits in the world. And I want to leave you with one final thought, one final image to carry with you as you go through your day and your week and your life, and that is this: every single coin we discussed today, every single one of these extraordinary multi-million-dollar treasures, started its existence as something completely ordinary, as a blank disc of metal fed into a press at a government facility, as a coin intended to be worth exactly 1 cent and no more, and the only thing that separated these extraordinary pieces from the billions of ordinary pennies produced alongside them was a tiny, precise, specific set of circumstances that occurred in a fraction of a second during the minting process, a circumstance that nobody planned, nobody predicted, and nobody recognized at the time, and yet that fraction of a second, that one moment of beautiful imperfection in the middle of a perfectly ordinary industrial process, created objects worth tens of millions of dollars that are now among the most cherished and most sought-after artifacts in the entire history of American coinage. So the next time you reach into your pocket and pull out a handful of pennies, look at them, really look at them, check the dates, and the mint marks and the lettering and the surfaces, because somewhere out there, right now, in someone's change jar or coat pocket or old coffee can, one of these extraordinary coins is waiting to be found. And the only question is whether it's going to be found by someone who watched this video and knows exactly what to look for, or whether it's going to be spent on a candy bar without a second thought. And we sincerely hope with everything we have that it's you who finds it. Thank you so much for watching Coinexa USA. Please like this video if it opened your eyes. Subscribe to our channel so you never miss another extraordinary coin story. And remember, the next fortune you find might already be in your pocket.